pie, so do Mississippi women. Although you found the treat tantalizing, I'm sure it was so small that it left you wanting more. Ideally, the gesture has served as a reminder that women in our state are consistently left wanting a bigger slice of Mississippi's economy. Too many Mississippi employers and policymakers are shortchanging Mississippi women. And as a result, women and their families are struggling to make ends meet. Mississippi women and their families know it way too much. Everyone should be able to earn a decent living, and women too frequently earn less money than men, lack access to supportive policies in the workforce, and face issues including domestic violence, sexual assault, while serving their families. So today we're here to lift up these issues and to say women deserve a seat at the table and to be prioritized. You will hear from advocates and legislators who support women's wages, who support women's economic security. You will also hear a personal story of a woman who actually won a lawsuit against wage discrimination. So we want to thank you for coming to our press event, and we ask that you stick around and ask questions. We will now have statements from our representatives and our senators, starting with Senator Representative David Barrier, who's been a champion for equal pay for equal work in Mississippi.
Thank you, Cassandra. Good morning, everyone. The economic security of women in our state is no less important than the economic security of men in our state. It's equally as important. And when I learned several years ago that women are consistently paid less than men with equal qualifications performing the same job, I began to file a bill to ensure that women would be paid equally and that disparities in pay would not be based on gender in our state. Other folks have also filed similar legislation. Each year, however, these bills are bottled up in committee. However, we have tried to work around committees, and we have offered amendments on the floor of the House and on the floor of the Senate. Each time we offer this legislation through an amendment, we pass the amendment, meaning that there are sufficient votes, at least in the House, to get this legislation passed. Yet year after year, we find that it continues to be bottled up in committee, and we're told by our leadership in the House that there are insufficient votes to get it passed. We know that that's not accurate because we've passed it. We passed it again last year on the floor of the House. It's time that we took this issue on straightforwardly, that we had a piece of legislation that would come out of committee that would be taken up and debated on the floor of the House and the Senate and passed and then signed into law by our governor. Unfortunately, the committee deadline has passed yet again this year. We will again attempt to pass this legislation on the floor of the House of Representatives through an amendment, and we expect that we will again have the votes to pass it. I want to say thank you to members of the Republican Party who have had the courage to step out and support this legislation. We hope and expect that they will continue to do so, and that one day we will be able to get this legislation passed and signed by the governor, and Mississippi will not be one of only 2 states in the country with gender pay equality legislation. Thank you for your time and attention today. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Senator Derek Simmons, who is the Senate Democratic Caucus Chair in the Mississippi Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Barrier. Good morning. It's been several years that the Republican leadership has passed critical legislation that protects women in this state. When we protect women and children in this state, we protect Mississippi families. When we protect women and children in this state, we protect and strengthen the Mississippi's economy. Legislative Democrats have always fought for Mississippi because we understand when we protect and strengthen women in this state, we are strengthening and protecting Mississippi. Working mothers need affordable child care so they can go to work and remain employed. While women make up half of Mississippi's workforce, they represent 80% of the minimum wage workers in this state. We need to increase the minimum wage in this state for working Mississippians, especially our women. And yes, women deserve equal pay for equal work. Legislative Democrats are front and center on this battle, and legislative Democrats will continue to fight for working Mississippians, especially our women, because we understand when we support and strengthen women, we support and strengthen children, we support and strengthen Mississippi's economy. Now, this is an election year. Women are watching, and the Republican leadership can do better. The Republican leadership must do better. Thank you.
We will now hear from some of our partners who've been with us throughout this journey to support women's wages and our families. We've built a coalition of over 100 women and organizations that stand with this issue. There's been bipartisan support, and we are really excited that they have come here today to stand with us and to talk about these issues. First, we will have Joy Owens from Oxfam America, followed by Jennifer Riley Collins, ACLU of Mississippi.
Good morning. I am Joy Owens. I'm an attorney here in Mississippi. Currently, I serve as a senior policy advisor and program lead for Mississippi and Louisiana for Oxfam America. A little over a year ago, I stood before a very similar audience and I made an ask. And at the time, I stood in a professional capacity as part of a coalition and as part of an organization who advocates for issues that I care very, very deeply for. But also at that time, I stood as a representative on behalf of the thousands of households that are headed by single mothers in Mississippi. You see, I am a single mother myself, and if it was not for resources, for equity, for fairness, and for people believing in me, I would not be able to provide my child the quality of life that he has today. And since that year, and since I made that ask, Cassandra, Welchlin, and I, along with the Mississippi Women's Economic Security Initiative, have traveled this country, and we've met with national partners, and we've discussed issues, policy issues about what makes women secure at work. We've also traveled this state of Mississippi that we both call home from top to bottom. We've met with lawyers, we've met with teachers, we've met with preachers, doctors, engineers, factory workers, police officers, and so many more women from all walks of life. And what connects and unites all of us is not a political issue. It's a people issue. We've politicized it here in Mississippi, but it's about people. The issue that connects all of us women is about equity, it's about fairness, and it's about doing what's right. And since I made that ask in the last year, many states have joined us in this call to action and passed state pay equity laws. Unfortunately, Mississippi is not one of those states. And in this year, we've been asked several questions, and so today I wanted to talk about two specifically. Oftentimes I'm asked, why do we need a state pay equity law? There's a federal one. And simply put, the state law is in excess of 50 years old. And as this country evolves and how we define what equity evolves, we need a law that gives protections to women. We need a Mississippi law that gives protections to Mississippi women that have extra layers of protection. And also I was asked, Cassandra and I were asked recently, well, why have a day? Your bills died in committee. And we said, while our legislation has died, we will not be silenced. We will continue to make this ask. We will continue to stand before members of the legislature and hold them accountable. I will continue to stand in the gap for women, for single mothers, and for all women, and make the ask for our legislator to do what is equitable, what is fair, and what is right. Thank you.
When I woke up this morning, I knew I would have the honor and the privilege of standing with these wonderful and amazing women. Yet I had no idea what I would say or honestly what I would wear. I'm standing here this morning invited as the executive director for the ACLU of Mississippi. And so I thought, should my comments focus on statistics available about women, such as the fact that single women lead 49% of the households in Mississippi, with only 64 cents to every dollar that a white man makes if you're a black woman? Or should I tell you that Mississippi leads the nation in maternal mortality. That means that women either die during childbirth or within days thereafter because they lack access to health care. Or I thought, would I stand here and tell you about Title IX and gender inequity and the fact that women's rights are constitutional rights? I honestly had no idea what I would say. So after thanking God for another day, I planted my feet on the ground and I started my day in wonder. I wondered for a moment, what would a man say? But then my mind quickly shifted. It shifted to starting my day. And then I wondered again, do men have to chart their day like a woman does? I wonder, do men start their day with thoughts like I have had before of thinking about which child had to be where, to play what sport or what instrument, how would I get them there, also while navigating work appointments and other requirements. I wondered as my morning continued and I brushed my teeth, did men have to think about what will be tonight's dinner so that a meal can be mentally prepared? Meat taken out to defrost or groceries shopped before running home and barely getting out of my work clothes before pots and pans were bubbling, all the while tutoring my children in advanced algebra and American history, or learning aside my students what robotics actually is. I just laughed and said to myself, nah, men don't chart their day like that. And so I decided this morning in thinking about what I would say and what I would wear, and I decided to wear a pantsuit. Why? Because I want men to know that women put on their pants one leg at a time, just like you do. After charting our day, your day, our children's day, we go to work. We work twice as hard, but get paid almost twice as little. So today, even while I stand here as the executive director for the ACLU of Mississippi, I stand here, men, representing your mother, your sister, your daughter, your girlfriend, your wife. I say we all deserve better because we give you better. We should not have to demand equal access to pay, to comprehensive, quality, affordable, confidential reproductive health care. We should not have to demand that our personal decisions about sexual activity and childbearing are informed, respected, supported, and attainable. We men ask that you stand alongside of us and create a state where women and girls are free to live, learn, and work as equals. Thank you.
We will now have an opportunity to hear from Harriet Oppenheim, who is with the EEOC and a trial attorney.
Harriet?
Good morning. I'm grateful to be here today to share with everybody about the EEOC's role in the fight against wage discrimination. As a lot of you know, our main job is to prevent workplace discrimination. A lot of people call us the workplace discrimination police because it's our job to make sure that no one, essentially everyone, has a right to work in a workplace free of discrimination. And so, of course, part of our job is enforcing federal laws such as Title VII and, of course, the Equal Pay Act. Now, how do we do that in regards to wage discrimination? We do things such as we investigate charges. Say, for instance, if a charge comes against an employer or a business saying that somebody has discriminated against them because, say, for instance, a woman, because of her sex, because of discrimination, we investigate. And of course, under the EPA, the main thing is equal pay for equal work, right? And so we investigate that, and hopefully we resolve it in the investigative stage. But of course, if that doesn't work out, then of course we litigate. And you'll hear later on from an actual victim of wage discrimination who filed a charge with EEOC and who actually won in court. And we commend people like that who actually come forward, women who come forward and say, hey, I have been victimized, I have not been paid for doing the equal work that a man has done. And we also educate. We educate employers because there are employers who actually want to do the right thing and pay the right amount for both sexes. And so we educate. Now, you may ask, what are women facing today in regards to wage discrimination? In 2018, nationally, women only made 80 cents per dollar for every man that, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Women only made 80 cents for every dollar that men made. Now, that's not reflective in what the EEOC charges we received in regards to Equal Pay Acts. We received 1,800 charges in Mississippi as far as EEOC claims. Out of those 1,800 charges last year, we only received 17 Equal Pay Act charges. We even litigated nationally less than that. We only litigated 11 Equal Pay Act claims. Now that doesn't match up in regards to women only making 80 cents out of every dollar that men make. Now you also may ask, so what can women do to better advocate against wage discrimination? At the EEOC, we encourage women to really talk about what they make at work. We know it's been ages of culturally to not talk about wages. Oh, keep it quiet. But what happens is a lot of times we have these backroom negotiations happening in which men start negotiating their salaries and they increase their salaries. And so we encourage people to actually talk about what they make so you'll know. And once you find out, we hope you actually report it to HR. And it's our hope that HR would do something about that and actually equal that pay. That also doesn't always happen. That's why we're here. We encourage women to file EEOC claims. File and say something, speak out. And of course, under the EPA, it's one of those acts where you don't have to necessarily go through the EEOC. You can actually file a claim in court. You can go straight to court. And so we encourage women to speak out. Be Amanda McMillan, who you hear about later, actually speak out. And of course, if you're retaliated against and an employer does something to you for speaking out, we're again here, the EEOC. File a claim, speak out. We're here for you. Thank you.
We have two more partners that's going to share, and then we will hear from Amanda McMillan. We will have Dr. Corrine Anderson, who's the president of the Mississippi chapter of the American Association of University Women, and then followed by Wendy Mahoney, who is the executive director of the Mississippi Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
You know what we do in education. We collect all of the data and all of the statistics that you need to hear about what we need to do. So let me give all of you a source for those of you who need data. It's called www.aauw.org. Anything you want to know about statistics, et cetera, about what we need to be doing, AAUW has for 122 years gathered data on why women need to be supported equally in the workplace and also in the environmental places of the universities. I'm the immediate past president of the American Association of University Women for Mississippi, and I am the public policy chair for Mississippi. While I was listening to my sisters give you the data, and more data will be given to you, I resolved to say this. We already know all we need to know about why women should be paid equally for the jobs they perform in the same jobs in the workplace. And one of the developmental phrases I've learned is, first you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, then you tell them what you told them. I've added, ask them to tell it back to you and make it write it down. We've done that for our legislators. We've done that also for our policymakers. One of the things we have not done, and we shall continue marching to do, is to make sure our voices are heard before the legislation is written. We have a number of women here who can help write that legislation, but we also have women who need to make sure that we call them out, those people who have supported us and those who don't have the sense enough to do so. And that's one of the things I want to leave with you. My president asked me to make sure I told you that the American Association of University Women Mississippi, which has the 8 major universities and 4 of the community colleges as members, want you to understand that people like me who started working 30 years ago in the university system, we're just now getting to the point where we're making as much as our male colleagues made when they started. I'll leave you with this last story of inequity. I have a grandson, just graduated college in Texas. started out with a $52,000 job right out of the chute. As a professor who has been in the classroom in a number of colleges, it took me 12 years to make $52,000. And I keep asking, why is that? It's because he wears pants, Colonel, and he looks and talks like a man. And men need to understand, we gave birth to you, we raised you, just do the right thing by us. And we want to say the American Association of University Women will stand with all of the women who are pushing for equal pay. And maybe some of you men out there will find it in your hearts to do the right thing and join us.
Good morning. I'm Wendy Mahoney, Executive Director for the Mississippi Coalition Against Domestic Violence. You may ask, why do we stand here in support of equal pay? Well, I'll tell you. The safety of victims, which includes personal safety, economic security of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking, is really linked to their economic security. For many victims, concerns over their ability to provide financially for themselves, their children, are a significant reason for staying in or returning to an abusive relationship. Even after a victim has left the abuser, ruined credit scores, sporadic employment histories, legal issues which have been caused by the violence, it's very difficult sometimes for them to pursue long-term economic security while staying safe. Simply put, when survivors of violence have stable access to resources that help them build economic resiliency, including things like paid sick and safe days, equal pay, access to social safety net and safe and affordable housing, fair financial and loan access, and workplace safety, they and their families are more likely to remain safe and secure. Addressing economic security will help victims stay independent in the long term, ultimately reducing the amount of services and justice system involvement that they may need in the future. Domestic violence victims lose 7.2 days of paid work each year. Rape victims lose 8.1 days, and stalking victims lose 10.1 days on average. These numbers are alarming, and I could give you many, 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 many more. But what's most important is making sure that equal pay for all. Equal pay is important on so many levels, as you've already heard. So economic security can mean freedom for those impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. So we stand today in solidarity with the women here and the other partners in making sure that our legislators, not only legislators, but everyone understands the importance and the intersectionality of equal pay on so many different levels. Thank you.
I want us to welcome a courageous and brave mom from Jackson, Mississippi, a mother of three who successfully sued her employer in 2011 for sex discrimination after learning she was doing many of the same duties as men on her job, but for lower pay. Help me welcome Amanda McMillan.
I'd like to thank Cassandra with Making Mississippi Women Secure for the invitation to share my experience with pay inequality and sex discrimination. My name is Amanda McMillan. I'm a resident of Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm thrilled to say that I've always lived in this great state. My experience with pay inequality and discrimination began in the late 1990s when I started working for a wholesale distributor in Shaw, Mississippi. I worked in an office. I processed invoices. I took orders from customers. And I generally did whatever was asked of me to do. After 4 to 5 years of working with this company, I wanted to apply for an outside sales position. Each time I inquired to fill out the application, I was told no. The reason my employer gave me was basically that this job was not for women. The job was too dangerous for a woman. No one would want to do business with a woman. And I wouldn't be a very good mother if I was out on the road making sales calls and God forbid my child needed me. These were just some of the reasons that were given to me by my boss. It was better for me to just stay in the office. When I finally understood that I was not going to be given the opportunity to even apply for the sales position, I told my boss that I wanted to be paid equally to the men that were working in the office with me. We were doing the exact same job, but the men were getting paid $10,000 to $15,000 more a year than me. My boss responded with, "Amanda, they need to be paid more. They have families to support." My response to them was, "What do you call the little people that I have at home? They are my family, and I am responsible for supporting them. It should not matter what anyone's home life is. If we do the same job, we should be paid equally." So I had choices. I could quit this job and start over. I could stay and be angry and bitter, or I could fight for my rights. I chose the last option. I started doing research. I educated myself on whether or not what was happening to me was legal. I gathered the documents that I had been saving to prove this pay inequality and sex discrimination. So with my evidence, I filed a claim with the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission in 2007. I continued to work for this company for a year while the investigation was going on. Can I tell you, I was not their favorite person. It was an incredibly hard time for me and my family. Finally, I quit this job in 2008. The investigation continued and we reached a settlement in 2011. Never, ever, while I was going through this experience, did I expect to be here discussing this issue with you today at the Mississippi State Capitol. But it is so important that I do. Many women are experiencing the exact same problem and having it worse than what I did. Young women want to graduate from our colleges and leave our state as quickly as they can for better opportunities elsewhere. My main motivation to fight for my rights was because I have 2 daughters. I could not look them in the eye anymore and say, "Honey, you live in America. You can do and be anything you want to be," while I was experiencing the blatant discrimination that was happening to me. I am just like many of you, a parent who is trying to take care of my children and struggling to comprehend why in the year 2019 women are still paid less than men, no matter what level of education has been reached. So try explaining this to a 6-year-old. In 2013, I was invited to the State of the Union address to sit in the First Lady's box, and then 2 more times to the White House before 2014. My youngest child did not understand why her mama was going to meet the president. She was in 1st grade at the time, and A's and B's had become very important to her. So I asked, what if you and James took a test and you both got all of the answers correct, but James got an A and you got a C? Would that be fair? She immediately responded with no. I told her that I was doing the same thing, but with money. If we both get all the answers right, or we do the same job, women should be treated equally. I encourage you to do research on the issue and to know your rights. Vote for lawmakers that understand that this is an important issue with real economic consequences for our state. Together, we can make changes. It is possible. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Let's clap for her one more time. Thank you. So we're not going anywhere. Our legislation died on the calendar, but we're still working to see if we can get this passed. If not this year, for sure we will be back again next year. This is important. Women don't want to go to court. Women want to go to work and go back home and take care of our families. So Mississippi, be fair, and let's pass laws that protect women's wages in this state of Mississippi. Thank you very much. This concludes our presentation.